Hello, welcome to another weekly video. Today I'm going to be talking about will God ask you to do something you don't want to do? I talked about it a little bit on my grief share video last week, and I just thought I would go a little bit more into detail with it today. Um, Bear with me, I have a chest cold and just trying to work through it. But anyway, I made some notes, so if you see me look down every once in a while, I'm just trying to remember what I was going to say. There's a lot of details to this, um, and it's hard to describe because it's kind of something you learn. I know it sounds weird, but you kind of learn these feelings that kind of tell you um, how you're supposed to go about, I guess, what God asks you to do, or if you're supposed to do certain things for God or not. Excuse me. And and it's different for everybody, because everybody has a different tolerance of different things, if that makes sense. Some people have a higher tolerance for stress than others and things like that. So it's gonna look different, but I'm gonna try to just give you some I don't know if ground rules is the right way to say it, because nothing is black and white. And I do want to stress that these are kind of just generalizations, um, kind of majority type things I ran into. So um, none of this is black and white. It's not. It's just not something you can definitely go by all the time. There will be exceptions, is my point. But anyway, let me go on and start. So like I said, God will ask you to do things that you don't want to do sometimes. And the reason I start out with that is because I didn't know that growing up. I thought He would only ask you to do things that you wanted to do. So I want to kind of expand on that. Um, so if you aren't willing, God won't ask you to do it. And again, that's not a hard and fast rule. Um, it's kind of like, if you became a vegetarian and you know you just aren't willing to eat meat again, God won't ask you to do it. Um, that's that's kind of true. The only reason I say that's not really a hard and fast rule is because a lot of times you don't know what you're willing to do until God presents it to you. I found that for myself. I had a long, um, well, I've talked about this in the videos before, but um, I've had a lot of frustrations with my mother specifically, and um, I've had to go through a lot of things to try to heal from it, and I remember thinking that I just wasn't willing to talk to her no matter what, and I was I guess I was almost stubborn in that way, and I remember I felt like um, well, really, I guess my husband told me that he thought I needed to talk to my mother. And this was only at one specific point. Again, this isn't something that, you know, um, is just a hard and fast rule. Like I said, there'll be times when, you know, God will tell you something and it'll change. But anyway, so I felt like, um, I guess I felt like that was kind of the right thing to do at the time. Well, I can't say that. I didn't feel like it was right. I was so desperate to be healed or get over what was happening to me, which was really just a lot of stress and pain from how I grew up. I was willing to do anything. So I did what my husband said. Of course, I didn't want to, and I struggled with it quite a bit. But um, my point was, I didn't think that I was willing to. But then um, I guess when God said it, or my husband told it to me, um, it felt like I was able to do it. Just having the idea presented to me. But anyway, um, the next thing I would say is if you aren't capable, God won't ask you to do it. So what I mean by that is, like, if you're paralyzed, God won't ask you to run a race. I mean, I think that kind of speaks for itself. There are a lot of things that we aren't physically capable of doing. Sometimes it is, you know, we're not able to communicate certain things. So God's not going to ask you to do something that you're not capable of. Um, so I guess I'll kind of leave it there. Um, and then there's another breakdown of if you are willing and capable, God won't ask you to do something that makes you feel bad or or I put causes domino effects to others like harm. But let me explain that. Like um, when I say that God won't make you do something that makes you feel bad, that's that's kind of an oversimplification. You you may feel bad sometimes. I don't want to mislead. There are things that like I said, you don't want to do. Well, let me just use an example. Um, when I was going to church, I guess it was my husband's parents' church. Um, they would have these events sometimes, and they would sometimes talk about how they just they didn't want to do it, but they felt like they should do it. And I think we were all willing and capable to do it, but a lot of times, I can't speak for them, but I felt like me and my husband would come back after the events just feeling really low, and a better representation of what we were feeling was we would end up taking it out on each other and sometimes get into a conflict. And that's kind of what I mean by God's not going to ask you to do something that causes harm to somebody else. But again, that's not black and white, and I'll try to go into that more later. But but you kind of just need to look out for warning signs. That's why I kind of stay away. I'm trying to stay away from the feelings because you God could tell you something that feels bad. Well, you could feel bad, but there's more to it. God doesn't usually tell you something that, like I said, will hurt your relationship. But there's more details to that, so I'll go into that. Sometimes God will ask you to do something you're not wanting to do, but you are willing and capable, and may cause harm for others, but it's good for you long term. So my example I'll talk about with that is um, this is what I was talking about on my last video with the grief share. Um, well, I felt like God was telling me earlier in the year that I needed to have a child, and I remember it's probably the closest thing I could think of that I just was not willing to do. And before God said it, I really didn't think that I was willing to at all. Um, but once He said it, I tried to be more open about it. But but it did cause quite a bit of harm. It just so happens that my husband kind of felt the same way. Um, we just didn't really want to have children. We wanted to kind of um, you know do our own thing and travel together, and um, just I guess simply just didn't want children. Um, so I remember it caused a lot of like stress and pain, bad feelings. We ended up taking a lot of stuff out on each other. Um, conflicts and stuff. But again, it's you have to. It's a learning process. You have to use discernment. I guess discretion. I started to learn through it. Well, of course, initially I was like, well, uh, maybe this isn't God because of all the stress it's causing, all the getting upset, and problems it was causing in the relationship. But I realized that there is also some things that need an adjustment. And when I say adjustment, like you're probably not going to be um, too happy in your life. There's going to be domino effects sometimes when it's something you just really don't want to do. There are going to be domino effects, and you just kind of have to understand that that's part of um, that's just part of what God tells you sometimes. And again, that I don't feel like that's something that happens very often. That's why I kind of give you the things to go by outside of that. Like I said, this one thing that God told me to do. Well, to be fair, there's only been like two things that God told me in my life that I really pushed against. I mean, I didn't want to do. I was unhappy about it. I probably pouted about it. Um, and really the signs of that are like I said, um, I was getting more frustrated in life, taking out my frustrations on my husband and things like that. Um, there's only been two situations like that for me. So again, I don't want to make it sound like that's a regular thing. It's really not. So you can kind of go by what I said before in generally. And like I said, it's different for everybody. I talked about, my husband's parents and how they they would talk about how they wanted to have an event. Sorry, they didn't want to have an event, but they were going to do it anyway. Um, and I'm not sure that it made them feel the same way that it made me and my husband feel. In fact, sometimes I think that they would say that they were glad they did the event after, you know. And I really look at that like they just had a different level of stress that they were dealing with. I mean, me and my husband we're dealing with a lot of things personally, so we just I don't think we could deal with the events the same way that they did. So, um, but I do think that God wants us to try to compromise with everybody. That example I'm talking about, I do wish that um, I wish we'd all been able to talk about it more. But I'll leave that for another video. My point is, we all have different areas um where I keep saying these rules. I don't know if they're really rules, but these things that are going to apply. It's going to look different for everybody. So um, I'm just trying to give you some examples. I hope that it helps. Um, but even if you do find these rules help, we have to be aware that other people are gonna feel these things differently. Um, I guess that's really the point of communication. That's probably what I would say. Um, trying to find out where people stand. Do you, um, well, I'm mostly talking about like um, deep personal relationships, marriage, dating. I mean, families this way, and I use church just because that's something that we went through. We all have to kind of work together to find out where we all stand. So that's also a part of things, and I think it's important to remember that you know you could apply these rules to your own life, but you have to figure out how these rules apply to other people's life. If somebody says they don't want to do something and they do it, chances are they don't feel the same thing as you do when you say I don't want to do it and you do it, or whatever the case is. But anyway, I think I'm going to leave it there. And if you have any questions for me, just leave those in the comments. I know it's kind of complicated stuff, but I think it's easier as time goes by to learn these kind of things. And again, I'm still learning, so I don't know everything, and I'm not an expert. So if you have anything to say, like I said, any questions, any comments, just let me know. And I'd love to be able to address that at some point. Like I said, if you have a question. So anyway, I appreciate you watching, and I hope you have a good day.